Hello and welcome to the Moviescramble podcast. You join us on this glorious summer official Scottish heatwave week where I am joined as ever by the ever delightful Mary. Mary, how the hell are you doing?
I am very well, and despite the fact that the temperatures have almost started with a 3, I do not resemble a drumstick squashy this time around, so feeling slightly smug about myself in a way.
It's always good to feel smug about not getting totally sunburned. Definitely is. I've managed to avoid it this weekend as well, but I'm still suffering the indignity of large swathes of skin peeling off of my legs from
the peeling's the
last
best bit.
Oh yeah, it can be, but it's actually quite disconcerting when you see how much actually comes off as well. But yeah, let's not go into too many medical things here. I could be all day. So anyway, today we are going to be talking about the latest blockbuster of the season. We are going to be talking about James Gunn's Superman.
Are you being serious right now?
Yeah.
You'd let me interview you as Superman.
Sure.
Ready?
Let's do it, Cronkite.
Superman.
Miss Lane.
Recently, you've come under a lot of fire for
I
what
know,
some
it's a
might.
lot of fire,
It's a
but-
lot. Today, the Secretary of Defense said he was going to look into your actions. That's funny?
My actions? I stopped a war.
Maybe.
Not maybe. I did.
In effect, you illegally entered a country.
This is how you're gonna be?
I'm not the one being interviewed, Superman. Did you consult with the president?
No.
You seemingly acting as a representative of
I
the
wasn't
United States
representing
will cause
anybody
more
except for me.
problems around the world.
And doing good.
I would question myself in the same situation and consider the consequences.
People were going to die.
Now, this film is the first to come out of the newly formed DC Studios. DC Studios has James Gunn and producer Peter Safran in charge of it, and they have been given the remit to basically relaunch the DC films after the end of the DC EU, which really only just finished up last year. Given the last couple of films, like including The Flash and Blue Beetle, which were still on the old slate and really had nothing to do with the new blood that was actually coming in. So we have now seen the first fruits of their labour in terms of the fact that it is a Superman film, which a lot of people were looking forward to for a long time. We've had various iterations of the Man of Steel since he first hit the big screen in a major way in 1978. There were stuff before that as well, obviously, but let's not talk about that. It's been through trials and tribulations ever since. They basically flogged that franchise to death after the fourth film, and they've tried basically ever since to bring it back in a meaningful way. Now, some people, especially all the Snyder fans out there, would say, yes, he did come back in a meaningful way with Man of Steel, but for a lot of people, it didn't really hit the mark of what they thought Superman was going to be. So where we are with this film is Superman is on Earth. He has been known to the world for 3 years, and when we are introduced to him, he has just the shit beaten out of him, and he's lying in the Arctic ice, all bloody, and basically cannot move to any sort of extent because of the injuries that he sustained when he was battling other metahumans who we haven't actually met yet. So instead of seeing Krypton and Jor-El and all the other various elements that make up an origin story, we are literally thrown into this story, which is 3 years old, which could be slightly disconcerting. Now, Mary, I know you have had a passing interest in various Supermen at one time or another. what was your sort of background to the whole Superman and DC thing, and what were your expectations for this movie?
So I must admit, I have only ever seen the original Superman with Christopher Reeve. It's not really a franchise that I've been drawn to over the years, despite the fact that obviously Henry Cavill had on the super suit at one point. For some reason, it's just not a story that's ever really interested me, and I don't know why. There's no rhyme or reason to it. However, from the minute I started to see the trailers for this, in fact, take it back even before that, when they announced the casting of David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan, I was like, oh, interested in this, because obviously I like The Marvelous Miss Maisel. So that kind of had me on the hook a little bit. And then the trailer started coming out and I was like, this feels really different. It feels really interesting. And obviously James Gunn has basically been given the keys to the kingdom with DC, and his task is obviously to sort of, liven up the audiences again in terms of actually bringing home some money at the box office. So to me, it felt like this could be the start of something really exciting. There's obviously a challenge there to actually get people to come back to DC. Bearing in mind, you've got the Fantastic Four coming out this month as well. Mm-hmm. So I feel like although they're not out at the same time, there will be sort of competition and, box office receipts will be tallied up. But I definitely just thought it looked different. I liked the casting in terms of it wasn't a well-known face that they'd obviously put in the famous suit. And yeah, I was just intrigued to see what it had to offer. I think that with James Gunn, you kind of know what you're going to get, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And so, yeah, I was excited to watch for sure.
Yeah. I have been more of a DC fan than a Marvel fan. When I was younger, I read a lot of the DC comics, and obviously was a big fan of Batman and Superman as well to a lesser extent, because it started off very well with the 1978 Superman film and followed on from that. Superman 2 was slightly lesser of a film, and then 3 and 4 were just a waste of time as far as I was concerned. They were just stupid and they were daft, and it wasn't entertaining. So when they obviously went through the Brandon Routh remake the redo of it, and obviously there's been various people who have been associated with actually taking a role in Superman, like Nicolas Cage, for instance. He was supposed to do a Superman version, which never came to anything. And then obviously Henry Cavill. But that iteration of Superman within the DCEU was very dark and actually quite po-faced as well. It was very serious. It took itself very seriously. And when the likes of the Justice League, the Batman versus Superman film, where it was like the whole Martha thing and all that sort of stuff. And it was all done very po-faced, and it just didn't really work at all. And the problem that most Superman films have is that Superman is pretty much invincible. So how do you build any sort of tension around that? Which this film actually has done right from the very start, because you see him in such
it
a state.
opens with him getting his arse handed to him, so he's not.
Yes.
And I actually really respected the fact that they didn't give us another origin story. Like, you were plunged right into the action. Like, as I say, I've not watched a lot of Superman films, but I know the story, and so I didn't need that fed back to me again. I like the fact that, we saw him kind of bloodied and kind of bruised, and there was this question of like, well, where is this going if he's not this sort of, perfect being who's never lost a fight? Where is this film going? So I really had a lot of respect for them choosing that as an opening.
Yep. So let's talk the opening then, because he's basically lying in the snow, and it comes up on the screen that 3 centuries ago, metahumans were discovered. 3 decades ago, Superman arrived on Earth. 3 years ago, he was introduced as Superman, and then it goes 3 weeks, 3 days, 3 hours, 3 minutes. And then basically the star of the show turns up in the form of Krypto, the superdog. I thought I would say that he was probably the best thing that could possibly have happened to that film at the start, because it sets it up in such a way. What did you think about the fact that it was so early on that the dog was involved in it?
I love this, because I read that James Gunn has based it on his own dog, who is a rescue. And so like there's a lot of like personality infused there. But I really liked it because I felt like from the offset we were given like a sort of levity, I guess. But and as you've said, the Henry Cavill films are very dark, and even the posters look dark and his suits look dark. Whereas this felt kind of like fun and almost like pop art in terms of like, you've got the really vibrant cape on the dog, and you know, although he's lying on the snow and he's, you know, in a bad way, there was a sense of like fun and playfulness to it that I've been saying this for a long time, that I think a lot of superhero films have been missing. Like, not everything needs to be the Dark Knight. Like, yes, it's a very successful film, but you're allowed to have a wee bit of a laugh. It doesn't have to be, you know, everything's po-faced and serious and really grim. So I really like the fact that they introduced this character. Obviously, the except for the dog's present in the trailers as well. So I wasn't sure how much he was going to be involved in the film, but he's there from the offset, and actually that gave you the sort of sense of levity that I think the film just, you know, it set its stall out from the beginning as to the type of film it was going to be, including by not giving him an origin story. And so yeah, I was all in, and it's a cute dog.
Yep. Do you have red, white, and blue nails on?
Oh no, I've got.
Oh, sorry,
Like
just I
different
thought
summer colours. Did you think I'd done Superman nails?
I did. Yes, yeah.
Well, I mean, we'll talk about how much I love David Corenswet, I'm sure, but it hasn't gotten that far yet.
Yes. I thought this was an excellent introduction to what is supposed to be a new era for DC.
Yeah.
In that it starts off and it says, this isn't going to be nearly as serious as you think it's going to be.
Fuck.
Exactly, yes. I think they've chosen very well, because obviously James Gunn had brought a certain sense of levity to the Guardians films, which were
yes, and I feel like this is
films.
very much in the same vein, which is absolutely what I think DC needs. It's the shot in the arm, as it were, that I think this whole, as I said, not everything has to be drained of colour. Because to me, even just looking at old Superman like comics and imagery, it's very pop art in terms of like the colours, and it's lively and it's vibrant. And from what I've seen, you know, clips of the Henry Cavill one, it's all of that sort of sucked out of it, whereas James Gunn seems to be bringing that back, which is so refreshing.
Definitely, yes. It's a real change of tone about it, and I don't think it's going to follow through with everything in the new DC Studios films, but I think it's a very good way to start it. I really do. So you've mentioned him before, David Corenswet, who for a lot of people is not a familiar face. How much of a chance do you think they were taking on this by bringing in I don't want to say a relative unknown, because he obviously has got
no, but I get what you mean, though.
Credits and everything, but yeah, he's not well known. He's not like a major star. Well, he is now, but he wasn't before now. So what did you think about that? And how do you think he did with the pressure on him to be the Man of Steel?
I think that's absolutely the right decision. I feel like casting a big name would have been a huge mistake, because if you're going to reboot an entire universe, which is what this is, you can't, I feel like having somebody that everyone knows or can read, because like certain actors, although they're very good and they disguise themselves in a number of different roles, there's always like maybe like a wee tell or a wee something that you're watching insert name here performance, whereas a lot of people are not going to be familiar with David Corenswet's work. And so placing that, I don't know, this reboot essentially in his hands, oh, don't get me wrong, it's a massive challenge, but I think he absolutely rises to it, because there's a couple of things. One, I think his Clark Kent is significantly different to his Superman in terms of physicality and vocal performance, which again, I'm sure we'll talk about. But I also think that he's not like, and sorry to David Corenswet if this was the aim, he's not like this steroidy, like, Cavill build. He looks like he was raised on a farm in Kansas. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's not this ridiculous, like, stereotype of a superhero. He does just look like a normal man as well. And so I think that's really important, because I also think that if we're talking about a meta-human who at the soul of everything he believes in is kindness, this has to be somebody who you can believe is kind. And I definitely believe that David Corenswet comes across as the press tour, which again I'm sure we'll talk about because it's been hilarious, but he comes across as somebody who is very, very kind and also quite in awe of the chance that he's been given here. So I think going with an unknown or lesser known actor, absolutely the right decision. If you're going to have a clean slate and a fresh start, don't bring all the baggage of a well-known actor to the role. You know, give somebody a chance to make it their own. And of course, it's not just the pressure of, you know, relaunching this franchise. For many people, Christopher Reeve is Superman, and they will not entertain your Dean Cain, your Henry Cavill, your Brandon Routh, Smallville, all these sort of like iterations of it. For them, there's only one person who should be, you know, is worthy of the cape, as it were. So there's not just the pressure of relaunching a franchise, there's the pressure of taking a very beloved role. And I definitely think he rises to the challenge, as I say, for all of those different reasons. I think he's actually been the perfect piece of casting, and not just because obviously he's absolutely fucking gorgeous, but that's just an aside.
Yeah. I don't think we've had a Superman that looks so different to Clark Kent. You could be forgiven for saying he isn't the same person at all. And James Gunn obviously mentioned that in that we've had a lot of films that focus on the super, but not very many of them that actually focus on the man, because a lot of the times Clark Kent is seen to be this, because of what he's trying to hide, he's basically a bumbling big idiot and he's all over the place. But here he's not. He's articulate, he obviously knows what he's doing, and he argues his case a lot of the time as well, which is interesting. It's interesting for the character and the fact that he is established as both Clark Kent and Superman. You're not even getting into the backstory of Clark Kent so much. You do get a little bit of that where he obviously he goes back to Smallville for a short period, and that's not really giving anything away in the film. I think you could probably expect that really more than anything else. So yes, I did like that, and I thought the performance was excellent because he totally threw himself into it, and he looked as if he was having a good time while he was doing it as well.
Yes.
And there was a lot more of Clark than I actually thought would be in this film. I thought it would be quite a lot of Superman, you know, busting up buildings and bad guys and all that, which, there was a certain element of that, but there wasn't nearly as much as I thought there would be. So it was an interesting choice.
I do think that's important as well, is that in a way you don't want your big reboot or relaunch to be this nothing burger full of CGI and fights, or maybe you do. I mean, but for me personally, that would do nothing for me. I actually really enjoyed the scenes where he was Clark, and as I say, physically, he is so different. He's got that kind of perm thing going on when he's Clark, the glasses, and obviously even just the fact that his hair is swept over his face as opposed to off it does really change how he looks. But there is a sort of like a kindness and a shyness and a goofiness to him that I really liked. But I was really reminded of that clip they always show you of Christopher Reeve where he's in Margot Kidder's house and he takes his glasses off and he immediately straightens up and the shoulders go back and he looks like, 3 or 4 inches taller. Because I definitely felt we got that with him morphing into Superman when he does the interview with Lois Lane, because his voice drops, he sits up straighter, the glasses come off. And I thought, this is a really interesting performance, because you're not just, phoning it in for the big fight scenes. Like, you're actually giving depth to this character, this man, as you say. It's the man side of it that's actually really interesting as well.
Yeah, it makes it's subtle things like that make a difference and actually engage you with the film more than anything else. So let's talk his main co-star here, not Lex Luthor, but Lois Lane, his nice counterpart in this film, Rachel Brosnahan, obviously off of the back of the Mrs. Maisel TV show, which ran successfully for 5 seasons, I think it was, and it was brilliant. Loved that program. I was really kind of distraught when it finished.
Me too.
Wanted more. I wanted it just to keep going until she was ancient when you saw it, then being ancient. But obviously, she has now branched out. She is taking more film parts, and this is probably maybe her biggest film role to date. Like you said, with David Cornsmith as well. She is not the biggest star out there, but obviously second billing in this film, well, maybe third billing in this film, but yes, still pretty good. What did you think about her as a character in this film first, and then her performance? What do you think?
So I really enjoyed this iteration of Lois Lane. I thought she was smart and driven, and you could tell that within the newsroom of the Daily Planet that her co-workers had a lot of respect for what she had to say and how she thought things should go. She came across as really capable and not just somebody like mooning over, Superman. Like, she obviously had her own life going on, so I had a lot of respect for that as well. And to be honest with you, given that we've talked about Mrs. Maisel and how strong and sassy she is, you couldn't really see Rachel Brosnahan giving a performance anything other than that. So I really liked her in this, and the chemistry between her and David Corenswet is just off the charts. Like, both of their spouses are extremely, understanding because they just seemed like so in love, but not in a, like, I feel like Marvel sometimes sort of skips out on the romance part and it just becomes kind of like cheesy kisses and stuff like that. Whereas I feel like, again, there was more depth to this. Like, you got a glimpse of their life together. Like, they were making dinner together. They were obviously sort of not living in each other's apartments, but staying there for maybe like extended periods of time. They obviously were sort of setting up a relationship. So yeah, I thought the romance element was excellent because it was kind of like normal and domestic. And again, that's thanks to how sort of normal she was as well. Like, she had a job, she had a life, and she wasn't just waiting for Superman to, come and chat the window or whatever it was in the middle of the night. She had her own thing going on. So I had a lot of respect for a really well written female character, and I would love to see more of her in future films.
I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think she will be featured in some of the future outings that's being talked about at the moment. So yes, I thought she was excellent. I knew she was an excellent actor anyway, but she really sort of rose into this performance. I thought it was very, very self-assured, and it made light of the fact that it's a difficult role to fill because you are literally standing in the shadow of a really tall man. So how do you make something of that? And the fact is, you don't try and emulate it. You don't go the opposite way and be all simpering and everything like that and weak. She was a regular person. And like, there was one bit where she says, I told you I'm no good at relationships. So, it spoke volumes about the type of person she is. She obviously wanted to have relationships, but things got in the way in terms of the fact that she was focusing on herself, not necessarily on her career, but she was focusing, and you could tell that she was somebody who focused on herself and wanted to make sure that she was all right, and a relationship was possibly secondary. And that's a slight difference again, because when you get that sort of dynamic and that sort of story, it's usually done in a way that makes him quite hard as a character, and it makes him quite brittle as well. But it wasn't done that. Like I say, the whole thing about it was it was a relationship that had been going on for 3 months already, and they dropped that quite nicely in to there. When she came back to her apartment, he was there making dinner, and he says it's her 3-month anniversary. So you knew from that one line that they'd been through the whole mad passion of the first month or so, and it was becoming more normal and a regular thing and everything. So I did like all that. Now, they had a really big scene at that point when they were in the apartment, because it was all to do with the fact that Clark Kent kept getting these exclusive interviews with Superman. So he agreed to be interviewed as Superman by Lois, and that whole scene, which went on maybe it was about 7 or 8 minutes, it was quite a big chunk of the movie, that basically they stopped everything in order to have this character development moment for the two of them. What did you think of that? Like, how do you think it was quite a bold move?
I do think so, because again, it comes back to this thing. It could have been this like CGI smash fest, and it wasn't. It gave you moments like this where, you got to understand that he was quite defensive of Superman's actions, and there was obviously a lot of hilarity, like where she was saying like, well, that's on the record now, and he was like, well, I meant it off the record, and she was like, well, you have to say off the record before you say whatever it is you're going to say. But you got this understanding of how passionately he felt about the work he was doing, if you want to put it that way. You know, he felt that he had done the right thing in stopping this war, and that, you know, his actions were to preserve, you know, the nation. And she didn't. She was going in a completely different angle. You kind of thought she might soft soap him a little bit, but she absolutely didn't. She like put on her journalism hat, as it were, and went in with the hard questions. And you could tell that shocked even him, because he thought he was going to get an easy ride of it as well. He thought this was like jokey. But I really loved that dynamic between them, because it showed that, you know, in that situation and given the choice, she was making the correct decisions for her career in order to get the best interview out or the best headline out. And the of that, he was extremely defensive of his actions as Superman. So it was it established a really fantastic dynamic between them that you got to see sort of snippets of as the film progressed. But I love that they took the time to build a scene like that in, because for me, and I've always said this about Marvel as well, I'm so much more interested in these scenes than a big dramatic set piece where buildings are falling down. Like, that to me is where the heart of these types of films lies.
Yeah, I thought it was very ambitious, considering the fact that this isn't an overly long film. You're talking about just over 2 hours here with this film. So to spend so much of the real estate on that one scene just to develop these characters. Now, I think it's quite a smart move, because you're not just developing them for this film, you're setting out how they behave in the future as well. So you don't need to repeat it. You don't need to do it again and again and again. Whenever if they do a sequel or they're involved in some of the spin-offs and things like that. So yes, it was excellent. And because you had two very good actors who were reacting to each other, like say, Lois's questions were, it was almost like devil's advocate sort of questioning. She wasn't taking a particular stance. If anything, she was just trying to get him on the back foot when he was answering, and he would say something, she'd say, "Oh, but what about?" And then ask another question straight off of that, and he was saying, "But no, and you could understand what he was trying to get across, but he wasn't doing it very well, because
no, he was not.
he was thinking, and he was vocalizing in terms of the fact that he was doing the right thing. And then when he was questioned why he was doing the right thing, and was he actually doing the right thing, because you're pitting one country against another, you stopped a war, but what was behind all that? Why was that all happening and everything? So, which led nicely on to the main antagonist in the film. Now, for any good film, you need a protagonist and you need an antagonist. In this case, the antagonist is probably the most famous one in the DC universe, which is Lex Luthor, Nicholas Hoult. In this case, what did you think of him?
I mean, a tech billionaire who's obsessed with an immigrant who's dabbling in wars in other countries. Where the hell did they get the inspiration for this from? Nicholas Hoult is having the time of his fucking life in this film. Like, it's so camp, it's so hyperbolic, and it's so at odds with what David Corenswet is trying to do with both Clark Kent and Superman, which is why he's got the room to do all of this kind of over-the-top stuff. But I mean, there's glorious close-ups, proper, like, looking down the barrel of the lens of him just absolutely losing his shit because things aren't going right. And I love that. I love how over the top it was. I loved every time you saw inside that control room where he'd, like, initially you see it's the hammer of Baravia that Superman's in a fight with, and he's like, B12, now D4, now blah, blah. And it was like he was using like computer game moves essentially to beat Superman because he's worked out his fighting patterns. But I loved him in this. I thought he was a great villain, and he was, he wasn't trying to be anything other than bad. Like, there was no moralizing who Lex Luthor was. You weren't given the sad backstory of actually this is why he's turned out this way. He was just a shit, and that was fine. It was absolutely perfect. And as I say, Nick Hoult is having the time of his life, and I loved the scenes that he got to share with Superman, because I just thought it was properly like good chemistry, like two actors really sort of at the top of their game doing really good work, which is not maybe something you'd expect from a Superman film, because it's not necessarily like a serious drama. It's not like, but it is almost Shakespearean in a way. It's essentially it's good versus evil. So I had the time of my life watching Nicholas Hoult have the time of his life. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I really like the fact with the character where I think it was in the third act, and they were speaking directly to each other about why are you doing this, Lex? And he says, well, it's hatred and rage. I know it's hatred. I know it's that, but it doesn't matter because that's what drives me. That's what keeps me going and everything. And I like the fact that he was like obviously a genius, an evil genius. He wasn't relying on like a whole team of people. Well, he had obviously had the team to do the work, but everything came from him. It was all his ideas and all his schemes and plans. He was massively clever, and he just enjoyed being a complete arse and being horrible and being that guy, basically. So I thought that was particularly good. And the fact was that he started building this community of metahumans that he's using for his own purposes, because they're the ones at the start of the film who actually beat the shit out of Superman, which you find in, they wear black. You can't get any more
they're the bad
obvious
guys.
than that. Yeah. So, yes. So it was, if you actually sort of boil the film down, it is, in essence, it's just good v evil, and it's a very good person playing good and a very good person playing evil as well. So the fact that they clash. Now, obviously, we've got a whole range of supporting characters in this. What was your favourite sort of supporting performance in there outside of the top three?
This is going to be so hard because there's three that I really, really loved, and I wanted to see more of the characters.
Go for it.
Okay, I really loved Metamorpho because I thought he just seemed so sad. And he was also trapped in this cube and doing the sort of bidding of Lex, and I thought he just seemed like a really interesting character to get to know more of as well. And I just thought he seemed, there was a lot of heartbreak and melancholy there that other characters didn't really seem to possess, but he had that. So there was him, and then there was Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner, because God bless Nathan Fillion with that bowl cut. That was something to be walking about with that. And I loved the fact that he just kept throwing out team names, and everyone was like, we're not calling ourselves that. So I loved his swagger. I loved the fact that he thought he was there to save the day. And I really loved that performance. It was very comedic, without necessarily telling jokes. It was just a very funny, physically and vocal performance. And then of course I really liked Mr. Terrific. I thought Eddie Gathegi was excellent in that role. A character that I'm not, as I say, because I did confess at the top of this pod that I've not really watched Superman films, a character that I'm not familiar with, but I again was completely fascinated by him because he almost seemed like the sort of antithesis of Lex. He was clearly very capable, clearly very intelligent, clearly very tech savvy, and yet he was using it for all the right reasons. So more of those characters. I could not get enough of them. Genuinely, every time Nathan Fillion swaggered on screen, there was just joy in my heart. What a lovely performance that was. These just all seem like people having good fun, and I think that's what we're missing with these big blockbusters. Is yes, we can have a serious message, which this film does have. Again,
yes.
We'll no doubt talk about that. There is a very serious point to this film, but that doesn't mean we can't have fun while we're talking about the serious message or, going through the metaphors. And I just think these characters in particular sort of encapsulated that. So they were, out of all the supporting cast, I would say they were my favourites.
Yeah, the portrayal of Guy Gardner, the Green Lantern, was just fantastic. That was my favourite because I've read quite a lot of the Green Lantern comics, and the character of Guy Gardner in the comics is an arse. He is. He's meant to be a good guy, but he's horrible, and he's got this mad bowl cut in there. And I like the fact that somebody called him out on his haircut, saying it's the worst haircut they've ever seen.
Yeah,
I thought, that was brilliant. It was really, really good. I thought he's good in pretty much everything he does. So, and I know he's a long time ally of James Gunn. Yeah. He's worked with him quite a lot in the past, but to have a role like that, which is going to have legs, that's going to keep going and keep going, I think.
I hope so.
And the fact that you've got these sort of supporting characters, and some of them are quite unlikable. And the Green Lantern character is an unlikable character. And Mr. Terrific, yes, he's a great character, but he's got a bit of an edge to him as well, where he doesn't suffer fools gladly in any way, and he gets upset with the others, especially the Green Lantern character gets very upset with him because of the way that he goes on all the time.
He cannot stand the shit that he comes out with, basically.
So it was a nice diversion, and it was good to have these characters in there. Now, like you said, there is a more serious side to this, because the whole starting point of this is that Superman stopped a war between two countries, and there is a whole sort of story behind why that was a bad thing. Now, what did you think about that thinking in terms of how it sort of brought the whole film together, and also, do you think it was a bit of a sort of like holding a mirror up to sort of real life events in any way?
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's that horrible, horrible scene on the border of Baravia and Jarampur where you see basically these tanks rolling up to fight children and young men and like people who look quite impoverished. And you can be forgiven for thinking you were watching a contemporary news bulletin for everything that's going on, you know, the genocide that's happening in Palestine, the war that continues to go on between Russia and Ukraine. It was very on the nose, so much so that right-wing news channels in America are calling, you know, this new Superman woke. It's about an immigrant who saves the day and all this sort of thing. And obviously you've got all these nefarious sort of tech billionaire bros like Lex Luthor who are having a say in how the government is run. Like, it genuinely is not that far from life as we know it. So it obviously does have a point to make in terms of, you know, kindness is the new punk rock is the kind of tagline that's sort of taken off online, and that's you know, that's what Superman stands for. But I definitely think it does an excellent job of drawing the film together because, you know, you have Vasil Gurkus, who is the Prime Minister or President of Baravia, so you get his character drawn in. You get Lex Luthor drawn in. You get the like Frank Grillo's character drawn in as the American government. Obviously, that brings Superman into it as well. So it does draw all these different elements of the film together really well. And yeah, it does hold a mirror up, and it does make you think, like, could we do with some more kindness? And I know that sounds cheesy because kindness is not going to solve a genocide, or it's not going to stop, you know, a dictator or whatever. But actually, all of this stuff sort of stems from the top, and all the characters at the top of this film are all serving their own agendas. Superman genuinely believes he's doing good, as in the greater good. It's kind of a hard point to miss. And no wonder they're all going, oh, it's woke, because nobody wants to hear that they're on the wrong side of history, but that's kind of what this is saying.
Yeah. There's a subtle thing that runs through the film in that you do not see an American flag in this film at any time.
No.
Which is quite telling because it's disassociating Superman from America's superhero into a world superhero. And the fact is that the conflict that he stopped was not between America and somebody else. It was between two countries that, on the face of it, have no bearing to where he lives. He was doing it for the good of the people. So yes, I thought that was very good. This whole, I've said it before about using the term woke. It's just nonsense. It doesn't mean what these people think it means.
No.
And it's just used as a way of putting somebody down or putting something down. And every time you hear it, you just have less and less respect for the person that's actually saying it. More, when they're using it in that sort of context.
Yeah, but imagine seeing a film that's about kindness and saying that's woke. What, should they have just let, children be bulldozed? Would that have been not woke? Like, that's what I don't get in terms of reaction to this film. And, James Gunn has been very pointed in saying this is a film about an immigrant. And if that's woke, then fuck it. This is exactly what this film's about. And I don't understand how people that don't understand that all of the original sort of graphic novels or comic books, whatever you want to call them, were all metaphors for what was going on in the world at any given point. So they've always been woke, if you want to call it that. Like, they've always been trying to hold a mirror up, as it were. Sorry if you don't like what you see.
Yeah, you're right. Everything to do with comics and all that has always been this morality tales. It's about doing the right thing in one way or another. Standing up to bullies, basically. That's what it is. So, and, having somebody to look up to that, like you say, is kind and is good and does the right thing and does it for their own reasons rather than a political reason or to be in charge of somebody else. So yes, I thought that was quite effective in the way that they did that. So yes, but I also thought it was reasonably subtle. They didn't hammer it home. They didn't need to, because there's a whole history of Superman there that's what he does, you know. It's what he's all about, which I thought was great. Now, we are introduced or reintroduced here to the Fortress of Solitude, which works in several capacities. There are a bunch of robots in there which service Superman's needs and basically are chew toys for Crypto the Superdog at the same time. And what I found quite good was it was also a place where he could like soothe his mind as well. He could relax and go a bit deeper, which you don't really think of that in the Superman character. You think of him as being strong all the time, but even when he was lying there, when he was getting like sort of doses of the yellow sun, he was getting shown pictures of his parents and the message from his Kryptonian parents, because it soothed them. It sort of balanced his mind. I thought that was nice. Did you like that whole thing about having that again? It was a bit of a downtime moment as well.
Yeah, so I think, again, this is a film where a lot happens, and you've said, like, it's only, like, just over 2 hour runtime, so the fact that it actually gives you these little pockets to breathe, I think is quite generous. A lot of filmmakers maybe wouldn't do it, but I really love those moments, because, again, it reinforces who Superman thinks he is and what he's here to do, which is obviously this spread kindness, do the right thing, but at the same time, you never think of, like, the pressures of being Superman and always doing the right thing and getting in these fights and protecting people might actually take its toll on a person. And so having these moments where he can just, get his repairs done to himself in his suit, listen to messages from home, and actually just take a breather. Like, I also thought that was a really interesting point, because he is supposed to be superhuman, but even he needs those moments of quiet where he can just refocus himself. So again, like there is a message there about, you can't pour from an empty cup. And so you need those moments to recharge. And I think, I hate using the word brave, but it does feel like a bit of a brave decision to actually show that as well, and to show that, even Superman needs, 5 minutes to collect himself. Like, I think it's adding layers to a character that we probably haven't seen before. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's definitely a good thing. And it's showing that even if someone looks invulnerable and totally stoic and everything, then there's a hell of a lot going on behind the eyes. Even people like that have self-doubts and they need to get things sorted. And they kind of echoed that with some of the other characters, the way that the Justice Gang in particular, because they wanted nothing to do with Superman, and it wanted nothing to do with trying to find him when he had actually been arrested. And they subtly changed as well. They didn't need to do as much in terms of subtly changing, because we are going to see these characters again. So they're going to have their moment in order to develop fully as characters. So we briefly mentioned it at the start, the publicity for this film. Chef's kiss.
I cannot put my phone down, because every time I go on TikTok, there's a new video with Rachel Brosnahan, David Corenswet, and Lex Luthor, and Nicholas Hoult. I'm obsessed with this press tour. Like, it's so well done. Like, they've been answering questions about how well they know each other. They've been doing little jokey things, like Nicholas Hoult standing in front of David Corenswet on the red carpet, chest all puffed out. They did a trust fall exercise, which was hilarious. Like I said, God bless David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan's partners, because they also did a video where it was the two of them just gazing into each other's eyes, paying each other compliments for 20 minutes. That's a lot. Not in character, just as each other. But I have adored this. What has been so good about it is it's been playful. So, like, they've even done like the Lad Bible snack wars and stuff like this, and it plays into the type of light touch that this film has as well. Like, these are three people enjoying themselves, talking about the fun that they had on this set and the fun that these roles have brought to their life. And I'm all for this. More, please. Like, I will happily just sit and mindlessly doom scroll hours of, cast videos while they talk about how much fun they had. But I think that it's also very savvy as to how films need to be marketed now. If you want people to go and see your films, you need to be all over TikTok, all over Instagram. You know, a big poster or a trailer in the cinema isn't going to cut it, because actually if somebody's not in the cinema to see your trailer in the first place, you need to reach them somehow. And I think they've nailed it. Like, it's three people having fun, enjoying each other's company, talking about, you know, a big blockbuster film. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's been very well orchestrated. I saw one of the sort of clips yesterday, the day before, and they're in between interviews, and you hear somebody saying off screen, all right, we're just about to bring the next person in for the interview, you've got a minute. So they'll get the phones out, and Nicholas Hoult is looking exclusively at pictures of David Cornswet as Superman, and he's expanding it, so it's just his face on the screen, and he's just looking at it intently, no expression, because he's sitting beside the two, and he's just looking, and then he says, right, we're ready, and he goes, right, and he puts his phone away.
I love that.
Just brilliant.
And of course, they're all making a big deal if he's obviously got platinum blonde hair at the moment for a new film role, so they're obviously they're making a big deal out of that. And then I don't know if you saw the lie detector one as well, where it's Nicholas Hoult and David Cornswet, and they're both picked up to lie detectors, and there was a wee bit of chest puffing when they were debating how tall the other one was, but all in good fun.
Nice. Oh, that's brilliant. So this is the start, like I said at the start, this is the beginning of a new era for DC Studios. Do you think that this film worked as a standalone film, or do you think there were too many reintroductions and sort of things to lead on to the next film and the film after that, and, you know, like building a new character or whatever? Or do you think it worked as a standalone film?
No, I definitely think it worked as a standalone film. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of introductions to characters, because, as we've said, you're sort of rebooting an entire universe. But all of that was just stuff I wanted to see more of. So this has actually made me really excited to see where DC is going. And that's not something I ever thought I would say out loud. But because I've always been more of a Marvel gal. But I'm really looking forward to seeing these characters again, seeing what happens next, watching the next press tours on TikTok. Like, it genuinely has made me feel joyous, which, as I said, is something that can be so lacking from superhero movies. But this is a film that prides itself on levity, kindness, a little bit of, funky music here and there, because it is a James Gunn film. But I definitely think that it's made me want more, and in a way that I don't feel like I've been sold an obvious through line of this will happen in this film, and this sets up this film, and this sets up that film. I don't feel like I was being marketed to, which is genuinely refreshing in these big superhero franchises.
Definitely. I thought it worked very well as a standalone film, and especially for people who weren't fully conversant with what's involved in the whole sort of the DC universe, if you like, in terms of all the characters. James Gunn has obviously got a good talent for digging in to the sort of the universe and plucking out these characters that you won't have seen on screen before, or you've maybe seen them in very sort of supporting roles, not really big roles. But the film worked on its own terms. It was a film that had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Yes, there were characters introduced, but they were necessary for the plot of the film and for the film to actually progress. They weren't just introduced because 3 years' time you're going to see them in something else. But when it was cleverly done, because you had the Justice Gang, which is obviously a work in progress, the name and everything. So there was all that, and there's obviously going to be other characters being added to that as and when other films. There's going to be a new Wonder Woman film and things like that. So, but none of that's really been announced. Though. Not with Gal Gadot, no. But they've been quite quiet about what they were doing. They haven't talked about the future. Yeah,
there's been no big launch.
The same way. Yeah, because if you think about the last time when it was the DCEU, they announced that right off. They're saying, right, we're going to do Batman v Superman, and then there's going to be 2 Justice League films, and there's going to be a Flash, and there's going to be, the whole list of things that they were going to have. Half of them didn't happen. Yeah. And they just said that right off the bat, this is what's going to happen. But this time, yes, they've said there's going to be other things involved there. I think the next one is The Authority. which has the character, what was the female, the female
The engineer.
antagonist, the engineer. It's going to be based around her. That may be a TV thing as well, but it's like the likes of Peacemaker is getting brought into all that as well. So that's all going to be involved in it. Obviously, there's going to be a Justice League at some point, but they were very much focused on, this is a Superman film. This isn't your first installment of what's going to be happening every 2 years or every year. You're going to have a film or whatever. There's been very little mention of that, which I think is really refreshing. Because
I think so, because you're just setting yourself up for disappointment. Don't start me on Marvel's Blade, because I'm still upset about it. But if you announce 25 films that are happening over the next 10 years and only 5 of them happen because of poor box office numbers or production didn't quite go off the ground or whatever, you're just setting yourself up for failure. Whereas, give a great film like this and one that people are going to enjoy and they're going to tell their friends to go and see, and they'll see it on social media. It puffs up an appetite for something else. And so when you deliver something else, there's joy around that as well. It doesn't feel like it's part of a list, like a to-do list.
Yep. And the way that they've gone about it, I think, is very good, because it was like October 2022 when this was announced that they were taking over, and their first product is here in 2025 from a standing start, basically. So that's pretty good going. And yes, there's the usual production troubles, and you've got to remember there was writer's strike and all sorts of things during that time, as writers and actors strikes. So that may have had an impact on how long it's taken. It could possibly have come even before now, but the fact that they've managed to do that, and it seems that they have a cohesive plan in place, which they're not trumpeting about. So therefore they're going to avoid disappointment and everything as well. I think it's a very good thing, and I think they're off to a very good start with it. So
I think so. It's very shrewd.
Yes, very. So given all we've talked about and our opinions, this question does seem a little redundant. I seem to say that all the time when we talk about this question, but would you recommend this movie?
Oh, absolutely. Like, honestly, as well as it being like a big, like good old-fashioned popcorn blockbuster, there's some genuinely gorgeous visuals to look at. There's great performances, fun little bits of music, really fun characterization, and a really nice, strong message at the heart of it. So buy your tickets and look up, as the hashtag says.
Very good. Nice. So that is a review of Superman. We are now going to be doing a wee top 3 for you as well, based around something from the film. Now, David Cornswet is not a brand new actor or anything. He has a list of credits, but this is really what a lot of people regard as being his breakthrough or breakout role. So what we thought we would do is look back and give our top 3 breakout roles. So, Mary, you're first. So what have you got for us?
I have got Alan Rickman's performance in Die Hard. So nice. I think this is one of the most iconic film performances of all time. And actually, Alan Rickman had been working away as an actor within the theatre. He studied at RADA. He was a big part of the Royal Shakespeare Company. And he actually had a Tony nomination for playing the Vicomte de Valmont in Le Liaison Dangereuse. But he'd never set foot on a film set. So at the tender age of 42, there's still time, people, he decided he was obviously cast as Hans Gruber, this cultured, calculating villain who completely redefined what an action movie antagonist should look and sound like. His performance actually landed him on the American Film Institute's list of top film villains. So despite the fact this is his first film role, I feel like you can't tell, for starters, he brings this sort of theatrical precision and charisma that really elevates the character beyond this sort of two-dimensional bad guy. He reportedly influenced the script to make Gruber more refined and intellectual, which obviously aligned with his strengths as a classically trained actor. And his performance absolutely stands out. He gives some of the most memorable lines in the film. If you've ever been to see a re-screening of Die Hard, there are people that stand up and shout the lines at the screen. They cheer every time, he says something. And I just think he is the template. as it were, for the suave villain. His delivery, his physicality, his subtle humour. Gruber is terrifying, but also oddly likeable as well. Like, you want to see more of him, and I feel like that's a balance that few villains actually achieve. And obviously from there, he went on to do, huge films such as like Sense and Sensibility, Dogma, Love Actually, and Harry Potter. But for me, as breakthrough roles go, this is like a masterclass in menace, wit, and depth. I just think if that's how you're going to land in Hollywood, take note, everyone, because this is just chef's kiss.
Yep, absolutely. It's one of the best, like I say, best bad guy performances on screen, and so many people have tried to emulate it or be that character. But yes, it's just amazing. He's so cynical as well, and it's brilliant. He's a bad guy, but he hates being a bad guy. He just wants an easy life, really, and everything. But yeah, it's just brilliant the way he comes across, this yuppie bad guy, because obviously it's an early 80s film as well. But yeah, just superb, absolutely brilliant. My first choice is Natalie Portman in the film Leon, where she plays, it was actually her screen debut role as well. She plays a 12-year-old child called Matilda, who, if you have seen the film, I'm going to spoil a wee bit of the film anyway, but
it's from a long time ago, you're allowed.
It's from a long time ago, yes. It's from 1994, so yes, that's even before our 1995 marathon. So yeah, she is living next door to the ever mysterious Leon, the professional, the hitman, and her family gets basically murdered by Stansfield and his crew of policemen because of a deal gone wrong, and she is the only survivor, and she basically ends up living with Leon and to a certain extent looking after him and making him a little more human. Now, the performance itself is obviously, it is a young girl, but it's got such depth to it. She is just absolutely fantastic in it. There was a nice wee note in the film that she learned how to make herself cry on cue, because in the first scene where she has to cry, she couldn't do it. So the crew sprayed her eyes with mint oil so that she would actually shed tears. And she says the thought of getting that done again meant that she was going to cry no matter what, just to avoid that. But that aside, the performance is so assured for somebody who is so young now. A bit of that's obviously got to do with the writing, but the performance is massive, and she more than holds her own with all these adult performances, the likes of Gary Oldman, for instance. She's a very memorable scene with him in the police station, and it's just absolutely fantastic. And it's obviously set up her career from then on, because so many kids who give memorable performances just tend to disappear for one reason or another. They just cannot replicate it. But obviously she has made a career from that very good starting point. So yeah, it's my first pick.
That is a great pick. I remember the first time I watched that and thought she absolutely acted everybody else off the screen. And it's no wonder in a way that she's had this, really lengthy career, because if that's what she was doing when how old was she in that film?
She was like 11 or 12. She wasn't old at all. She was really, really, because you can tell, because she's really tiny, she's not like her arms and everything. They're just skinny wee kid arms and legs, So yes, it was quite something. She was very young, and it shows that she's very young in it, but yes. Yeah. So your second pick?
So my next pick, I've gone for Anya Taylor-Joy in The Witch. So this was actually her debut as well. She was discovered during a modelling shoot and obviously transitioned into acting. So in The Witch, she plays Thomasin, a Puritan teenager accused of witchcraft in 1630s New England. I just think her performance is so layered and nuanced, and it really sort of anchors the entire film, because she is quite ethereal looking, and this film sort of really leans into that. It's obviously quite an eerie film. Like, she's very emotional, she's very raw, but she's also very composed as well. So she feels slightly off balance just in a way that the film does as well. Critics at the time praised her ability to convey innocence, fear and defiance, often within the same scene. The film itself obviously is directed by Robert Eggers, and he loves his historical authenticity, and that sort of feeling of dread that he really grabs you with in this film is no different. But Taylor-Joy's performance is absolutely central to this film's success. I think her ability to carry the emotional weight of a film, especially because we've seen other examples of people transition from other careers, like footballers and models and singers, who have tried, obviously, to tap into acting and it's maybe never quite worked, or they've done one film and that's been it, whereas obviously she's gone on to have like a really successful career in the likes of like Split and The Menu and The Queen's Gambit and Furiosa and all that. So she's definitely held her own against some really big players, but I just think in this film she's absolutely captivating and she does Egger's script justice. She is a joy to watch, no pun intended. And yeah, like from the first time I watched this film, I was like, I want to see more of her because she was so interesting and dynamic and just really captured the tone of an Eggers film, which I think is really hard to do. So she was obviously in the running to play the lead in Nosferatu and had to drop out. Not saying that the performances in Nosferatu weren't great, they absolutely were. But again, you just kind of wonder what that would have looked like if she'd been involved, because she is just one of these interesting to watch actors.
I think her looks have something to do with the fact that she's interesting to watch, because she doesn't really look like a standard film star. She's got a very unique look about her. She's very, very stunning.
In a way. She's got very fine features, but I think, so again, I feel like these period dramas kind of really suit her because I don't know if you've seen this thing about, they call it cell phone face. People who've had too many fillers and veneers are not believable in period dramas, whereas she is very natural and, her hair's long and flowing and she's got huge big doe eyes. And so these kind of period pieces really like speak to just the way she looks, never mind her acting capabilities. Yeah,
she's got a very particular style of acting about her as well. It's almost like there's a curiosity almost in every character that she's doing, and it comes across really well. And obviously she knows how to frame her face and make sure that she doesn't show an awful lot of emotion. She can be quite
reserved,
difficult to read, I feel like, and that obviously draws you in because you're kind of you lean a wee bit closer when she's actually performing as well. So it's quite something. Myself, for my second choice, I am going to go with Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween in the role of Laurie Strode. She is obviously one of the ultimate Nepo babies.
Yeah, maybe the original. I don't know.
Yeah, well, she would be up there. Janet Leigh and Tony Curtis were the the genes that produced Jamie Lee. She was in her late teens, early 20s when she took on this role of Laurie in the now iconic Halloween film. And a lot of people tend to forget that everything was around her character in that film, and she was the one that had to produce the majority of the acting in order to keep people engaged. And for somebody to do that in what is their initial film role is something quite fantastic. Now, obviously, she'd had sort of minor credits before then and obviously done a fair bit of stage acting and stuff, but the way that she came across in that film is pretty much iconic, and it's set her up in a fantastic career ever since then. Obviously, she's returned to the role and she's been able to take that role, which was basically a teenage girl who was doing babysitting and get caught up in all the events, and turn that into something far more deep, like as a middle-aged woman, and then obviously slightly later as well. So the fact that she was able to develop as an actor in order to take on these roles, but still have the strength in the initial role that everybody remembers is just quite something. And it's such a icon is one of these words that you kind of bandy about a fair amount. It's usually for people who have managed to just survive more than anything else. But in this case, it is justified because of the body of work that she has actually done as well. I think she's a fantastic actor. She always has been, but this was such a strong role, which I think a lot of actors would have struggled with, the fact that they had to be so present on screen for such a long time. And she makes it look effortless. And she is obviously one of the early Scream Queens as well. So you can't go wrong.
Yeah, no, that's a great shout. And also for just adding like nuance to the sort of Scream Queen role as well. Like, her character obviously is a survivor and, you know, is capable and all the rest of it. So it wasn't just like a two-dimensional thing. Like, she definitely made it her own.
Definitely. So, your third and final choice, my lady?
Oh, you did mention the word icon. So I am going to go with Julie Andrews in Mary Poppins because, quite frankly, this whole setup is the stuff of Hollywood legend. She was a Broadway star thanks to My Fair Lady and Camelot, and she was quite famously passed over for the film version of My Fair Lady. You know, she lost out to Audrey Hepburn. But Walt Disney saw her perform and offered her the role of Mary Poppins pretty much on the spot. So for me, Mary Poppins defines my childhood. I was completely enchanted by this magical nanny who could sing and tidy your room with the click of her fingers and make birds sing and jump through paintings. And she was just, it's funny because some people would describe her character as cold because she's quite like to the point, but I always see just real warmth in her as well. And it obviously earned her an Academy Award for Best Actress. And the hilarious thing is that she beat Audrey Hepburn, who was nominated for My Fair Lady. So perhaps she got her, you know, flowers in the end. I think, you know, her singing voice is obviously impeccable. She has really good comedic timing, both in terms of delivery and actually physicality as well. She has great chemistry with Dick Van Dyke and the likes of David Tomlinson as well. And the film was a massive success. Like, it was obviously really highly praised for live action and animation, the memorable songs, but actually most importantly, her like truly radiant screen presence. Like, when you think of Disney, Mary Poppins is quite possibly one of the first films that springs to mind. And she obviously followed it up with The Sound of Music. So no small feat there to do that. And obviously she's gone on to have a career, like, you know, for decades afterwards. But I think that it's a role that's elegant and charming and witty and, yeah, just really heartfelt and emotional, and it brings back a lot of nostalgia for me. So it felt wrong not to include her on this list.
Brilliant choice. Just absolutely fantastic. Something that is sort of running through the whole thread of this is the fact that they're not one-off performances. You can have a breakthrough performance and sort of really stand out, but everybody we've talked about so far has had a massive career on the back of that breakout performance. Now, obviously, Julie Andrews was a big star on stage before she broke into cinema, and obviously being cruelly overlooked for My Fair Lady could have been a real punch in the gut. But yeah, the fact that she did that and then went on to have the career that she did have is just absolutely amazing. Yes, I have a real soft spot for Mary Poppins. I just love that film. I love the animated part of it as well, with the penguins and everything. It's just absolutely, you know, it's one of these films you're never tired of watching, and you forgive it its flaws and you just enjoy it from start to finish. Everything about it. It's not meant to be real, so therefore Dick Van Dyke's accent isn't.
Oh, even the accent's grown on me. I don't care.
Yeah. Because it's a really good performance from him as well. Yeah. So everything about it, but yeah, everything kind of hinges on the character of Mary Poppins, and it's just, yeah, absolutely brilliant. So I have changed my last choice. I was going to go with Lauren Bacall and To Have and Have Not, but I'm going to save that one for if we do a first performances, because it's a really good one for that rather than doing this. So what I am going to go for is Orson Welles in Citizen Kane from 1941. Now, obviously, this film, which was a flop at the time, I may add, is regarded as one of the greatest films of all time, but mostly because of the way that the film was put together, the cinematography, the direction. His performance in this film as Charles Foster Kane is fantastically nuanced. It's just, it does the bombastic, it does the small. There's basically every emotion. You could have like a big wall chart of emotions and you would just be ticking off as you go along watching this film, because he does a bit of everything in it and he is superb in it. And it is kind of, like I say, it is kind of overlooked because of the other aspects of the film, which are obviously just as good. But to have that as your sort of opening screen performance, I know, again, with Orson Welles, he had like a theatre career and he was doing radio plays and everything. But for so many people, this was the first time that they actually saw him in such a big film, such a big release, and his name was sort of known to the masses at that point. And I'm just blown away by the fact that he was able to do so. He was able to actually like take this film from start to finish, direct it, be involved in the cinematography, be involved in all like these techniques that he had to basically make up as he was going along in order to do it, and also be in a position where he's thinking about his acting performance, which a lot of the time would be pushed to the side because there's so many other things. Like the story with Dick Van Dyke is in Mary Poppins is he'd come off the back of another performance that he'd been doing, so he didn't have a lot of time to prepare for Mary Poppins, and he says maybe I didn't prepare in the way I should because I was doing all the singing and the dancing and everything, so I really didn't work on the accent the way I should. You could be forgiven for doing that if you're so heavily involved in so many aspects of a film, but Orson Welles obviously absolutely nailed it. So yes, I was quite happy with that final choice.
Yeah, I feel like you've just blown everything out of the water with that one. You can't just throw Citizen Kane about.
I'll try not and do it every week, you know.
Yeah. Well, an excellent pick, and you're so right. Like, the performance could have easily become secondary or even tertiary when you had everything else going on, and actually it's one of the best performances like you'll ever see. It's just a masterclass of human emotion.
But obviously we could have had loads and loads of other ones as well. So did you have any that you had sort of honourable mentions for it as well?
I did. I had Kirsten Dunst in Interview with the Vampire as well, because she's my twin, so selfishly I just picked that. But that I was torn between her and Julie Andrews, and Julie Andrews won out in a celebrity death match that happened in my head.
Glad I didn't see that projected anyway. That's good. For me, the two that I thought was John Boyega in Attack the Block, which was his performance. That was that was my favourite film from 2012, I think, and it was brilliant performance.
God, is that when that came out? Wow.
Yeah, I know. And Edward Norton in what was it? Can't even remember the film. He was a student film. It was a Richard Gere film. Richard Gere's a lawyer in it, and Edward Norton gives this fantastic performance. I shall look it up. Something to do with fear.
Is it a John Grisham adaptation, or am I talking crap?
I think it's of that style.
Maybe that's what I'm getting confused with. Just because you said it's a lawyer film, I wonder, because I'm sure Richard Gere's done a John Grisham adaptation, but maybe I'm just getting confused. Yeah,
I keep thinking of Cape Fear, but it's obviously not. So that's terrible.
Primal Fear.
Primal Fear, yeah. It was the Edward Norton film, Primal Fear. He's fantastic in that as well, and it's I won't give it away.
I've seen that. No, I've seen that. I watched that for the first time just a few years ago, and it finished. I Chris had seen it before, and I remember just turning around and going, "What the fuck?" Like it's such a good film. Like you go into this blind, you're never guessing how this film is turning out. It's so good.
Nice. Yep. Oh, definitely. I was pretty much like that the first time I watched the film. It was a real. You're going, oh, especially I was watching it on my own and I was listening up to go, but.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was all good. So that's us for today. If you liked what you heard, please give us a positive review on the podcast app of your choice. A nice wee 5-star review would be very welcome. Thank you very much. It does wonders in promoting the pod and getting us out there for other people. So if you could do that, we'd be eternally grateful. If you can drop us a message at the same time as well, and we will respond to you. You can get in touch with us by email at podcast@moviescramble.co.uk. And as I say, we are on all the social media channels. So please just search for Movie Scramble and you will find us. We use the same logo pretty much everywhere anyway. So it's all the same. And if you think we're doing a good job, or if you think there's stuff that we could possibly cover, then please, we are always open to suggestions. We have actually actioned stuff in the past as well. So yes, we are more than happy to converse with anybody that wants to get in touch with us. So until the next time, it's cheerio from me. Bye-bye.
Bye.